Notebook of a Return to the Native Land by M.A. Cesaire. At the end of daybreak. Beat it, I said to him. You cop, you lousy pig, beat it. I detest the flunkies of order and the cockchafers of hope. Beat it, evil Grigri, you bedbug of a petty monk. Then I turned toward paradises lost for him and his kin, calmer than the face of a woman telling lies. And there, rocked by the flux of a never-exhausted thought, I nourished the wind. I unlaced the monsters and heard rise, from the other side of disaster, a river of turtle doves and savannah clover, which I carry forever in my depths, height deep as the 20th floor of the most arrogant houses, and as a guard against the putrefying force of our crepuscular surroundings, surveyed night and day by a cursed venereal sun. At the end of daybreak, burgeoning with frail coves, the hungry Antilles, the Antilles pitted with smallpox, the Antilles dynamited by alcohol, stranded in the mud of this bay, in the dust of this town, sinisterly stranded. At the end of daybreak, the extreme, deceptive, desolate eschar on the wounds of the waters, the martyrs who do not bear witness, the flowers of blood that fade and scatter in the empty wind like the screeches of babbling parrots, an aged life mendaciously smiling, its lips opened by vacated agonies, an aged poverty rotting under the sun, silently, an aged silence bursting with tepid pustules, the awful futility of our raison d'etre. At the end of daybreak, on this very fragile earth thickness exceeded in a humiliating way by its grandiose future, the volcanoes will explode, the naked water will bear away the ripe sun stains, and nothing will be left but a tepid bubbling pecked at by seabirds, the beach of dreams and the insane awakening. At the end of daybreak, this town sprawled flat, toppled from its common sense, inert, winded under its geometric weight of an eternally renewed cross, indocile to its fate, mute, vexed no matter what, incapable of growing with the juice of this earth, self-conscious, clipped, reduced, in breach of fauna and flora. At the end of daybreak, this town sprawled flat. And in this inert town, this squalling throng so astonishingly detoured from its cry as this town has been from its movement, from its meaning, not even worried, detoured from its true cry, the only cry you would have wanted to hear because you feel it alone belongs to this town, because you feel it lives in some deep refuge and pride in this inert town, this throng detoured from its cry of hunger, of poverty, of revolt, of hatred, this throng so strangely chattering and mute. In this inert town, this strange throng which does not pack, does not mix, clever at discovering the point of disencasement, of flight, of dodging, this throng which does not know how to throng, this throng so perfectly alone under the sun, like a woman one thought completely occupied with their lyric cadence, who abruptly challenges a hypothetical rain and enjoins it not to fall, or like a rapid sign of the cross without perceptible motive, or like the sudden grave animality of a peasant, urinating standing, her legs parted, stiff. In this inert town, this desolate throng under the sun, not connected with anything that is expressed, asserted, released in broad earth daylight, its own, neither with Josephine, Empress of the French, dreaming way up there above the Negro scum, nor with the liberator fixed in his whitewashed stone liberation, nor with the conquistador, nor with this content, with this freedom, with this audacity. At the end of daybreak, this inert town and its beyond of lepers, of consumption, of famines, of fears crouched in the ravines, fears perched in the trees, fears dug in the ground, fears adrift in the sky, of piled up fears in their fumaroles of anguish. At the end of daybreak, the morn forgotten, forgetful of leaping. At the end of daybreak, the morn in restless, docile hooves, its malarial blood routs the sun with its overheated pulse. At the end of daybreak, the restrained conflagration of the morn like a sob gagged on the verge of a bloodthirsty burst in quest of an ignition that slips away and ignores itself. At the end of daybreak, the morn crouching before bulimia on the outlook for tons and mills, slowly vomiting out its human fatigue, the morn solitary in its shed blood, the morn bandaged in shade, the morn and its ditches of fear, the morn and its great hands of wind. At the end of daybreak, the famished morn, and no one knows better than this bastard morn why this suicide choked, with a little help from his hypoglossal jamming his tongue backwards to swallow it, why a woman seems to float belly up on the Capot River, her chiarosco body submissively organized at the command of her navel, but she is only a bundle of sonorous water. And neither the teacher in his classroom nor the priest at catechism will be able to get a word out of this sleepy little Negro, no matter how energetically they drum on his shorn skull, for starvation has quicksanded his voice into the swamp of hunger. A word, one single word, and we will forget about Queen Blanche of Castile. A word, one single word. You should see this little savage who doesn't know any of the 10 Commandments. For his voice gets lost in the swamp of hunger, and there is nothing, really nothing, to squeeze out of this little brat, other than a hunger which can no longer climb to the rigging of his voice, a sluggish, flabby hunger, a hunger buried in the depth of the hunger of this famished morn. At the end of daybreak, the disparate stranding, the exacerbated stench of corruption, the monstrous sodomies of the host and the sacrificing priest, the impassable beak-head frames of prejudice and stupidity, the prostitutions, the hypocrisies, the lubricities, the treasons, the lies, the frauds, the concussions, the panting of a deficient cowardice, the heave-holeness, enthusiasm of supernumerary sahibs, the greeds, the hysterias, the perversions, the clownings of poverty, the cripplings, the itchings, the hives, the tepid hammocks of degeneracy. Right here, the parade of laughable and scrofulous buboes, the forced feedings of very strange microbes, the poisons without known elixins, the sanies of really ancient sores, the unforeseeable fermentations of putrescible species. At the end of daybreak, the great motionless night, the stars deader than a caved-in balafon, the terretical bulb of night sprouted from our villainies and our self-denials, and our foolish and crazy stunts to revive the golden splashing of privileged moments, the umbilical cord restored to its ephemeral splendor, the bread and the wine of complicity, the bread, the wine, the blood of honest weddings. And this joy of former times making me aware of my present poverty, a bumpy road plunging into a hollow where it scatters a few shacks, an indefatigable road charging at full speed a morn at the top of which it brutally quicksands into a pool of clumsy houses, a road foolishly climbing, recklessly descending, and the carcass of wood, which I call our house, comically perched on minute cement paws, its coiffure of corrugated iron in the sun like a skin laid out to dry, the main room, the rough floor where the nail heads gleam, the beams of pine and shadow across the ceiling, the spectral straw chairs, the gray lamplight, the glossy flash of cockroaches in a maddening buzz. At the end of daybreak, this most essential land restored to my gourmandise, not in diffuse tenderness, but the tormented sensual concentration of the fat tits of the morns, with an occasional palm tree as their hardened sprout, the jerky orgasm of torrents, and from Trinité to Grande Rivière, the hysterical grand suck of the sea. And time passed quickly, very quickly. After August and mango trees decked out in all their lunals, September begetter of cyclones, October igniter of sugarcane, November who purrs into distilleries, there came Christmas. It had come in first, Christmas did, with the tingling of desires, a thirst for new tenderness, a burgeoning of vague dreams. Then, with the purple rustle of its great joyous wings, it had suddenly flown away, and then its abrupt fallout over the village that made the shack life burst like an overripe pomegranate. Christmas was not like other holidays. It didn't like to gad about the streets, to dance on public squares, to mount the carousel horses, to use the crowd to pinch women, to hurl fireworks into the faces of the tamarind trees. It had agoraphobia, Christmas did. What it wanted was a whole day of bustling, preparing, a cooking and cleaning spree, endless jitters, about not having enough, about running short, about getting bored. Then at evening, an unimposing little church, which would benevolently make room for the laughter, the whispers, the secrets, the love talk, the gossip, and the guttural cacophony of a plucky singer, and also boisterous pals and shameless hussies, and shacks up to their guts and succulent goodies, and not stingy, and 20 people can crowd in, and the street is deserted, and the village turns into a bouquet of singing, and you are cozy in there, and you eat good, and you drink hearty, and there are blood sausages, one kind only 2 fingers wide twined in coils, the other broad and stocky, the mild one tasting of wild thyme, the hot one spiced to an incandescence, and steaming coffee and sugared anise and milk punch, and the liquid sun of rums, and all sorts of good things which drive your taste buds wild, or distill them to the point of ecstasy, or cocoon them with fragrances, and you laugh, and you sing, and the refrains flare on and on like cocoa palms. Alleluia, Kyrie eleison, leçon, leçon. Christ et leçon, leçon, leçon. And not only do the mouths sing, but the hands, the feet, the buttocks, the genitals, and your entire being liquefies into sounds, voices, and rhythm. At the peak of its ascent, joy bursts like a cloud. The songs don't stop, but roll now anxious and heavy through the valleys of fear, the tunnels of anguish, and the fires of hell. And each one starts pulling the nearest devil by the tail, until fear imperceptibly fades in the fine sand lines of dream, and you really live as in a dream, and you drink and you shout and you sing as in a dream, and doze too as in a dream, with rose-petal eyelids, and the day comes velvety as a sepulchre, and the liquid manure smell of the cacao trees, and the turkey shelling their red pustules in the sun, and the obsessive bells, and the rain, the bells, the rain that tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. At the end of daybreak, this town sprawled flat. It crawls on its hands without the slightest desire to drill the sky with a stature of protest. The backs of the houses are afraid of the sky truffled with fire. Their feet are the drownings of the soil. They chose to perch shallowly between surprises and treacheries. And yet the town advances. Yes, it does. It even grazes every day further beyond its tide of tiled corridors, prudish shutters, gluey courtyards, dripping paintwork. And petty hushed-up scandals, petty unvoiced guilts, petty immense hatreds knead the narrow streets into bumps and potholes where the wastewater grins longitudinally through turds. At the end of daybreak, life prostrate, you don't know how to dispose of your aborted dreams. The river of life desperately torpid in its bed, neither turgid nor low, hesitant to flow, pitifully empty, the impartial heaviness of boredom distributing shade equally on all things, the air stagnant, unbroken by the brightness of a single bird. At the end of daybreak, another little house, very bad smelling in a very narrow street, a minuscule house which harbors in its guts of rotted wood dozens of rats and the turbulence of my 6 brothers and sisters, a cruel little house where demands panic the ends of our months and my temperamental father gnawed by one persistent ache, I never knew which one, whom an unexpected sorcery could lull to melancholy tenderness or drive to towering flames of anger, and my mother whose legs pedal, night and day, for our tireless hunger. I was even awakened at night by these tireless legs which pedal the night and the bitter bite in the soft flesh of the night of a singer that my mother pedals for our hunger and day and night. At the end of daybreak, beyond my father, my mother, the shack chapped with blisters, like a peach tree afflicted with curl, and the thin roof patched with pieces of gasoline cans, which create swamps of rust and a stinking sorted gray straw pulp. And when the wind whistles, these odds and ends make a noise bizarre, first like the crackling of frying, then like a brand dropped into water, the smoke of its twigs flying up. And the bed of boards from which my race arose, my whole entire race from this bed of boards, with its kerosene case paws as if it had elephantiasis, that bed, and its kid skin, and its dry banana leaves, and its rags, yearning for a mattress, my grandmother's bed, above the bed in a jar full of oil, a dim light whose flame dances like a fat cockroach. On this jar in gold letters, Merci. And this rue pie, this disgrace, an appendage repulsive as the private parts of the village which extends right and left, along the colonial highway, the gray surge of its shingled roofs, here there are only straw roofs, spray-browned and wind-plucked. Everyone despises rue pie. It's there the village youth go astray. It's there especially that the sea pours forth its garbage, its dead cats and croaked dogs, for the street opens onto the beach, and the beach alone cannot satisfy the sea's foaming rage. A blight this beach as well, with its piles of rotting muck, its furtive rumps relieving themselves, and the sand is black, funereal. You've never seen a sand so black, and the scum glides over it yelping, and the sea pummels it like a boxer, or rather the sea is a huge dog licking and biting the shins of the beach, biting them so fiercely that it will end up devouring it, the beach and rue pie along with it. Pie. At the end of daybreak, the wind of long ago, of betrayed trusts, of uncertain evasive duty, and that other dawn in Europe arises. To go away. As there are hyena men and panther men, I would be a Jew man, a Kafir man, a Hindu man from Calcutta, a Harlem man who doesn't vote, the famine man, the insult man, the torture man you can grab any time, beat up, kill, no joke, kill, without having to account to anyone, without having to make excuses to anyone, a Jew man, a pogrom man, a puppy, a beggar. But can one kill remorse? Perfect as the stupefied face of an English lady discovering a Hottentot skull in her soup tureen? I would rediscover the secret of great communications and great combustions. I would say storm. I would say river. I would say tornado. I would say leaf. I would say tree. I would be drenched by all rains, moistened by all dews. I would roll like frenetic blood on the slow current of the eyes of words, turned into mad horses, into fresh children, into clots, into curfew, into vestiges of temples, into precious stones remote enough to discourage miners. Whoever would not understand me would not understand any better the roaring of a tiger. And you ghosts rise blue from alchemy, from a forest of hunted beasts, of twisted machines, of a jujube tree, of rotten flesh, of a basket of oysters, of eyes, of a network of straps, and a beautiful Cesaire of human skin. I would have words vast enough to contain you, and you earth-taught, earth-drunk, earth-great vulva raised to the sun, earth-great delirium of God's mentula, savage earth arisen from the storerooms of the sea, a clump of cecropia in your mouth, earth whose tempestuous face I can only compare to the virgin and foolish forest which, were it in my power, I would show in guise of a face to the undeciphering eyes of men. All I would need is a mouthful of Jaculi milk to discover in you always as distant as a mirage, 1,000 times more native and made golden by a sun that no prism divides, the earth where everything is free and fraternal, my earth. To go away. My heart was pounding with emphatic generosities. To go away. I would arrive sleek and young in this land of mine, and I would say to this land whose loam is part of my flesh, I have wandered for a long time, and I am coming back to the deserted hideousness of your sores. I would go to this land of mine, and I would say to it, embrace me without fear, and if all I can do is speak, it is for you I shall speak. And again I would say, my mouth shall be the mouth of those calamities that have no mouth, my voice the freedom of those who break down in the prison holes of despair. And on the way I would say to myself, and above all, my body as well as my soul, beware of assuming the sterile attitude of a spectator, for life is not a spectacle, a sea of miseries is not a proscenium, a man screaming is not a dancing bear. And behold, here I am. Once again, this life hobbling before me, what am I saying, life? This death without sense or pity, this death that so pathetically falls short of greatness, the dazzling pettiness of this death hobbling from pettiness to pettiness, these shovelfuls of petty greeds over the conquistador, these shovelfuls of petty flunkies over the great savage, these shovelfuls of petty souls over the three-souled cherub, and all these deaths futile. Absurdities under the splashing of my open conscience, tragic futilities lit up by this single noctulica, and I alone, sudden stage of this daybreak, when the apocalypse of monsters cavorts then, capsized, hushes, warm election of cinders, of ruins, and collapses. One more thing, only one, but please make it only one. I have no right to measure life by my sooty finger span, to reduce myself to this little ellipsoidal nothing trembling 4 fingers above the line. I, a man, to so overturn creation that I include myself between latitude and longitude. At the end of daybreak, the male thirsts and the desire stubborn. Here I am, severed from the cool oases of brotherhood. This so modest nothing bristles with hard splinters. This too safe horizon is startled like a jailer. Your last triumph, tenacious crow of treason. What is mine, these few thousand death-bearers who mill in the calabash of an island, and mine too, the archipelago arched with an anguished desire to negate itself, as if from eternal anxiety to protect this impossibly delicate tenuity separating one America from another, and these loins which secrete for Europe the hearty liquor of a Gulf Stream, and one of the 2 slopes of incandescence between which the equator tightrope walks toward Africa, and my non-fenced island, its brave audacity standing at the stern of this Polynesia. Before it, Guadalupe, split in 2 down its dorsal line and equal in poverty to us. Haiti, where negritude rose for the first time and stated that it believed in its humanity, and the funny little tale of Florida, where the strangulation of a Negro is being completed. In Africa, gigantically caterpillaring up to the Hispanic foot of Europe, its nakedness where death sighs widely. And I say to myself, Bordeaux and Nantes and Liverpool and New York and San Francisco, not an inch of this world devoid of my fingerprint, and my calcaneus on the spines of skyscrapers, and my filth in the glitter of gems. Who can boast of being better off than I? Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, monstrous putrefaction of revolts, stymied, marshed of putrid blood, trumpets absurdly muted, land red, sanguineous, consanguineous land. What is also mine? A little cell in the Jura, a little cell. The snow lines it with white bars. The snow is a jailer mounting guard before a prison. What is mine? A lone man imprisoned in whiteness, a lone man defying the white screams of white death. Toussaint Louverture. A man who mesmerizes the white sparrow hawk of white death. A man alone in a sterile sea of white sand. A coon growing old standing up to the waters of the sky. Death traces a shining circle above this man. Death stars softly above his head. Death breathes, crays in the ripened cane field of his arms. Death gallops in the prison like a white horse. Death gleams in the dark like the eyes of a cat. Death hiccups like waters under the keys. Death is a struck bird. Death wanes. Death flickers. Death is a very shy Petura. Death expires in a white pool of silence. Swellings of night in the four corners of this daybreak, convulsions of congealed death, tenacious fate, screams erect from mute earth, the splendor of this blood, will it not burst open? At the end of daybreak, this land without a stela, these paths without memory, these winds without a tablet. So what? We would tell, would sing, would howl. Full voice, ample voice, you would be our wealth, our spear pointed. Words? Ah, yes, words. Reason, I crown you, evening wind. Your name, voice of order? To me, the whip's corolla. Beauty, I call you the false claim of the stone. But ah, my raucous laughter, smuggled in, ah, my saltpeter treasure, because we hate you and your reason, we claim kinship with dementia precox, with the flaming madness of persistent cannibalism. Treasure, let's count. The madness that remembers, the madness that howls, the madness that sees, the madness that is unleashed. And you know the rest. That 2 and 2 are 5, that the forest meows, that the tree plucks the maroons from the fire, that the sky strokes its beard, etc., etc. Who and what are we? A most worthy question. From staring too long at trees, I have become a tree, and my long tree feet have dug in the ground large venom sacs, high cities of bone. From brooding too long on the Congo, I have become a Congo resounding with forests and rivers, where the whip cracks like a great banner, the banner of a prophet, where the water goes, likula, likula, where the anger bolt hurls its greenish axe, forcing the bores of putrefaction to the lovely wild edge of the nostrils. At the end of daybreak, the sun which hacks and spits up its lungs. At the end of daybreak, a slow gait of sand, a slow gait of gauze, a slow gait of corn kernels. At the end of daybreak, a full gallop of pollen, a full gallop of a slow gait of little girls, a full gallop of hummingbirds, a full gallop of daggers to stave in the earth's breast, customs angels mounting guard over prohibitions at the gates of foam. I declare my crimes, and that there is nothing to say in my defense. Dances, idols, an apostate. I, too. I have assassinated God with my laziness, with my words, with my gestures, with my obscene songs. I have worn parrot plumes, muscat skins. I have exhausted the missionaries' patience, insulted the benefactors of mankind, defied Tyre, defied Sidon, worshipped the Zambez. The extent of my perversity overwhelms me. But why, impenetrable jungle, are you still hiding a total zero of my mendacity, and from a self-conscious concern for nobility, not celebrating the horrible leap of my Pahuan ugliness? Voom roo to charm the snakes, to conjure the dead. Voom roo to compel the rain to turn back the tidal waves. Voom roo to keep the shade from moving. Voom roo that my own skies may open. Me on a road, a child chewing sugar cane root. A dragged man on the blood-spattered road, a rope around his neck. Standing in the center of a huge circus, on my black forehead, a crown of daturas. Voom roo. To fly off, higher than quivering, higher than the sorceresses toward the other stars' ferocious exultation of forests and mountains, uprooted at the hour when no one expects it, the islands linked for 1,000 years. Voom roo mo. that the promised times may return, and the bird who knew my name, and the woman who had 1,000 names, names of fountain sun and tears, and her hair of minnows, and her steps my climates, and her eyes my seasons, and the days without injury, and the nights without offense, and the stars my confidence, and the wind my accomplice. But who misleads my voice? Who grates my voice? Stuffing my throat with 1,000 bamboo fangs, 1,000 sea urchin steaks. It is you, dirty end of the world, dirty end of daybreak. It is you, weight of the insult and 100 years of whiplashes. It is you, 100 years of my patience, 100 years of my effort simply to stay alive. Roo-oh. We sing of venomous flowers flaring in full-filled prairies, the skies of love cut with blood clots, the epileptic mornings, the white blaze of abyssal sands, the sinking of flotsam and nights electrified with feline smells. What can I do? One must begin somewhere. Begin what? The only thing in the world worth beginning. The end of the world, of course. Tort. Oh, tort of the terrifying autumn, where new steel and perennial concrete grow. Tort, oh tort, where the air rushes in great sheets of evil glee, where saneous water scars the great solar cheeks. I hate you. One still see Madras rags around the loins of women, rings in their ears, smiles on their lips, babies at their nipples, these for starters. Enough of this outrage. So here is the great challenge, and a satanic compulsion, and the insolent nostalgic drift of April moons, of green fires, of yellow fevers. Vainly in the tepidity of your throat you ripen for the 20th time the same indigent solace that we are mumblers of words. Words? While we handle quarters of earth, while we wed delirious continents, while we force steaming gates, words. Ah, yes, words, but words of fresh blood, words that are tidal waves and erispelas and malarias and lava and brush fires and blazes of flesh and blazes of cities. Know this, the only game I play is the millennium. The only game I play is the great fear. Put up with me. I won't put up with you. Sometimes you see me with a great display of brains, snap up a cloud too red, or a caress of rain, or a prelude of wind. Don't fool yourself. I am forcing the vitelline membrane that separates me from myself. I am forcing the great waters which girdle me with blood. I and I alone choose a seat on the last train of the last surge of the last tidal wave. I and I alone make contact with the latest anguish. I and oh, only I secure through a straw the first drops of virginal milk. And now a last boo. To the sun, not strong enough to inebriate my very tough head, to the mealy night with its golden hatchings of erratic fireflies, to the shock of hair trembling at the very top of the cliff where the wind leaps in bursts of salty calvaries, I clearly read in my pulse that for me, exoticism is no provender. Leaving Europe utterly twisted with screams, the silent currents of despair, leaving timid Europe which collects and proudly overrates itself, I summon this egotism beautiful and bold, and my plowing reminds me of an implicable cutwater. So much blood in my memory. In my memory are lagoons. They are covered with death's heads. They are not covered with water lilies. In my memory are lagoons. No women's loincloths spread out on their shores. My memory is encircled with blood. My memory has a belt of corpses, a machine gun fire of rum barrels brilliantly sprinkling our ignominious revolts, Amora's glances swooning from having swigged too much ferocious freedom. Negroes are all alike, I tell you. Vices all the vices, believe you me. Negro smell, that's what makes cane grow. Remember the old saying, beat a Negro and you feed him. Among rocking chairs contemplating the voluptuousness of courts, I circle about an unappeased filly, or else quite simply, as they like to think of us, cheerfully obscene, completely nuts about jazz to cover their extreme boredom. I can boogie-woogie, do the Lindy Hop, and tap dance, and for a special treat, the muting of our cries muffled with wah-wah. Wait. Everything is as it should be. My good angel grazes the neon. I swallow batons. My dignity wallows in puke. Sun, angel sun, curly angel of the sun, for a leap beyond the sweet and greenish treading of the waters of abjection. But I approach the wrong sorcerer. On this exercised earth, cast adrift from its precious malignant purpose, this voice that cries, little by little, hoarse, vainly, vainly hoarse. And there remains only the accumulated droppings of our lives, and they do not respond. What madness to dream up a marvelous caper above the baseness. Oh yes, the whites are great warriors. Hosanna to the master and to the Negro gelder. Victory, victory, I tell you. The defeated are content. Joyous stenches and songs of mud. By a sudden and beneficent inner revolution, I now honor my repugnant ugliness. On Midsummer Day, as soon as the first shadows fall on the village of Gros Morne, hundreds of horse dealers gather on Rue de Profundis. A name at least honest enough to announce an onrush from the shoals of death. And it is truly from death, from its thousand petty local forms, cravings unsatisfied by paragraphs and tipsy bondage to the distilleries, that the astonishing cavalry of impetuous nags surges unfenced toward the great life. What a galloping, what neighing, what sincere urinating, what prodigious droppings! A fine horse difficult to mount, a proud mare sensitive to the spur, a fearless foal superbly pastern, and the shrewd fellow whose waistcoat displays a proud watch chain, palms off, instead of full udders, youthful metal and genuine contours, either systematic puffiness from obliging wasps, or the obscene stings from ginger, or the helpful distribution of several gallons of sugared water. I refuse to pass off my puffiness for authentic glory, and I laugh at my former childish fantasies. No, we've never been Amazons of the king of Dahomey, nor princes of Ghana with 800 camels, nor wise men in Timbuktu under Askia the Great, nor the architects of Djinné, nor Madis, nor warriors. We don't feel under our armpit the itch of those who in the old days carried a lance, and since I have sworn to leave nothing out of our history, I who love nothing better than a sheep grazing his own afternoon shadow, I may as well confess that we are at all times pretty mediocre dishwashers, shoeblacks without ambition, at best conscientious sorcerers, and the only unquestionable record that we broke was that of endurance under the Chicote. In this land screamed for centuries that we are bestial brutes, that the human pulse stops at the gates of the barracoon, that we are walking compost hideously promising tender cane and silky cotton, and they would brand us with red-hot irons, and we would sleep in our excrement, and they would sell us on the town square, and an ell of English cloth, and salt and meat from Ireland cost less than we did. And this land was calm, tranquil, repeating that the Spirit of the Lord was in its acts. We, the vomit of slave ships. We, the venery of the Calabars. What? Plug up our ears? We, so drunk on jeers and inhaled fog that we rode the roll to death. Forgive us, fraternal whirlwind. I hear coming up from the hold the enchained curses, the gasps of the dying, the noise of someone thrown into the sea, the baying of a woman in labor, the scrape of fingernails seeking throats, the flouts of the whip, the seething of vermin amid the weariness. Nothing could ever lift us toward a noble, hopeless adventure. So be it. So be it. I am of no nationality recognized by the chancelleries. I defy the craniometer, homo sum, etc. Let them serve and betray and die. So be it. So be it. It was written in the shape of their pelvis. And I. And I. I was singing the hard fist. You must know the extent of my cowardice. One evening on the streetcar facing me, a Negro. A Negro big as a pongo trying to make himself small on a streetcar bench. He was trying to leave behind, on this grimy bench, his gigantic legs and his trembling, famished boxer hands, and everything had left him, was leaving him. His nose, which looked like a drifting peninsula, and even his negritude discolored as a result of untiring tawing. And the tar was poverty, a big, unexpected lop-eared bat whose claw marks in his face had scabbed over into crusty islands. Or rather, poverty was, like a tireless worker, laboring on some hideous cartouche. One could easily see how that industrious and malevolent thumb had kneaded bumps into his brow, bored two bizarre parallel tunnels in his nose, over-exaggerated his lips, and in a masterpiece of caricature, planed, polished, and varnished the tiniest, cutest little ear in all creation. He was a gangly Negro without rhythm or measure, a Negro whose eyes rolled a bloodshot weariness. A shameless Negro, and his toes sneered in a rather stinking way at the bottom of the yawning lair of his shoes. Poverty, without any question, had knocked itself out to finish him off. It had dug the socket, had painted it with the rouge of dust mixed with rheum. It had stretched an empty space between the solid hinge of the jaw and bone of an old tarnished cheek, had planted over it the small shiny stakes of a 2 or 3 day beard, had panicked his heart, bent his back, and the whole thing added up perfectly to a hideous Negro, a grouchy Negro, a melancholy Negro, a slouched Negro, his hands joined in prayer on a knobby stick, a Negro shrouded in an old threadbare coat, a comical and ugly Negro, with some woman behind him sneering at him. He was comical and ugly for sure. I displayed a big complicitous smile. My cowardice rediscovered. Hail to the 3 centuries which uphold my civil rights and my minimized blood. My heroism, what a farce. This town fits me to a T, and my soul is lying down like this town in its refuse and mud. This town, my face of mud. For my face, I demand the vivid homage of spit. So, being what we are, ours the warrior thrust, the triumphant knee, the well-plowed plains of the future, look, I'd rather emit to uninhibited ravings, my heart and my brain like a drunken knee. My star now, the funereal Minfinil, and on this former dream, my cannibalistic cruelties. The bullets in the mouth-thick saliva, our hearts from daily lowness burst. The continents break the fragile bond of isthmuses, lands leap in accordance with the fatal division of rivers and the mourn which for centuries kept its scream within itself. It is its turn to draw and quarter the silence. In this people an ever-rebounding spirit, and our limbs vainly disjointed by the most refined tortures, and life even more impetuously springing up from this compost, unexpected as a soursop amidst the decomposition of breadfruit. On this dream so old in me, my cannibalistic cruelties. I was hiding behind a stupid vanity destiny called me. I was hiding behind it, and suddenly there was a man on the ground, his feeble defenses scattered, his sacred maxims trampled underfoot, his pedantic rhetoric oozing air through each wound. There is a man on the ground, and his soul is almost naked, and destiny triumphs in watching the soul which defied its metamorphosis in the ancestral slough. I say that this is right. My back will victoriously exploit the chalaza of fibers. I will deck my natural obsequiousness with gratitude, and the silver-braided bullshit of the postillion of Havana, lyrical baboon pimp for the glamour of slavery, will be more than a match for my enthusiasm. I say that this is right. I live for the flattest part of my soul, for the dullest part of my flesh. Tepid dawn of ancestral heat and fear, I now tremble with the collective trembling that our docile blood sings in the madripoor. And these tadpoles hatched in me by my prodigious ancestry, those who invented neither powder nor compass, those who could harness neither steam nor electricity, those who explored neither the seas nor the sky, but who know in its most minute corners the land of suffering, those who have known voyages only through uprootings, those who have been lulled to sleep by so much kneeling, those whom they domesticated and Christianized, those whom they inoculated with degeneracy, tom-toms of empty hands, inane tom-toms of resounding sores, burlesque tom-toms of Tibetic treason. Tepid dawn of ancestral heat and fears, overboard with alien riches, overboard with my genuine falsehoods. But what strange pride suddenly illuminates me? Let the hummingbird come, let the sparrowhawk come, the breach in the horizon, the cynocephalus, let the lotus bear of the world come, the pearly upheaval of dolphins cracking the shell of the sea, let a plunge of islands come, the disappearing of days of dead flesh and the quicklime of birds of prey. Let the ovaries of the water come where the future stirs its testicles, let the wolves come who feed in the untamed openings of the body at the hour when my moon and your sun meet at the ecliptic inn. Under the reserve of my uvula there is a wallow of boars. Under the gray stone of the day there are your eyes, which are a shimmering conglomerate of cochinella. In the glance of disorder there is this swallow of mint and broom, which melts away to be reborn in the tidal wave of your light. Calm and lull, O my voice, the child who does not know that the map of spring is always to be drawn again. The tall grass will sway gentle ship of hope for the cattle, the long alcoholic sweep of the swell, the stars with the bezels of the rings never in sight, will cut the pipes of the glass organ of evening. Zinnias, Corianthus will then be poured into the rich extremity of my fatigue, and you, star, please from your luminous foundation draw Lemurian thing of man's unfathomable sperm, the yet undared form, carried like an oar in woman's trembling belly. O friendly light, O fresh source of light, those who invented neither powder nor compass, those who could harness neither steam nor electricity, those who explored neither the sea nor the sky, but those without whom the earth would not be the earth. Jabosity all the more beneficent as the bare earth, even more earth. Silo where that which is earthiest about earth ferments and ripens. My negritude is not a stone, its deafness hurled against the clamor of the day. My negritude is not a leucoma of dead liquid over the earth's dead eye. My negritude is neither tower nor cathedral. It takes root in the red flesh of the soil. It takes root in the ardent flesh of the sky. It breaks through opaque prostration with its upright patience. Ea for the royal Cesaire. Ea for those who never invented anything, for those who never explored anything, for those who never conquered anything, but yield, captivated to the essence of things, ignorant of surfaces but captivated by the motion of all things, indifferent to conquering but playing the game of the world. Truly, the eldest sons of the world, poorest to all the breathing of the world, fraternal locus for all the breathing of the world, drainless channel for all the water of the world, spark of the sacred fire of the world, flesh of the world's flesh pulsating with the very motion of the world, tepid dawn of ancestral virtues. Blood, blood, all our blood aroused by the male heart of the sun. Those who know about the femininity of the moon's oily body, the reconciled exaltation of antelope and star, those whose survival travels in the germination of grass, a perfect circle of the world, enclosed concordance. Here the white world, horribly weary from its immense efforts, its stiff joints crack under the hard stars, its blue steel rigidities pierce the mystic flesh. Here its deceptive victories tout its defeats. Here the grandiose alibis of its pitiful stumbling. Pity for our omniscient and naive conquerors. Ea for those who never invented anything, for those who never explored anything, for those who never conquered anything. Ea for joy, Ea for love, Ea for grief and its utters of reincarnated tears. And here, at the end of this daybreak, my virile prayer, that I hear neither the laughter nor the screams, my eyes fixed on this town, which I prophesy, beautiful. Grant me the savage faith of the sorcerer. Grant my hands the power to mold. Grant my soul the sword's temper. I won't flinch. Make my head into a figurehead. And as for me, my heart, do not make me into a father, nor a brother, nor a son, but into the father, the brother, the son, nor a husband, but the lover of these unique people. Make me resist any vanity, but espouse its genius as the fist the extended arm. Make me a steward of its blood. Make me a trustee of its resentment. Make me into a man for the ending. Make me into a man for the beginning. Make me into a man of meditation, but also make me into a man of germination. Make me into the executor of these lofty works. The time has come to gird one's loins like a brave man, but in doing so, my heart, preserve me from all hatred. Do not make me into that man of hatred for whom I feel only hatred. For entrenched as I am in this unique race, you still know my tyrannical love. You know that it is not from hatred of other races that I demand of myself to become a horror for this unique race. That what I want is for universal hunger, for universal thirst, to summon it to generate, free at last, from its intimate closeness, the succulence of fruit. And be the tree of our hands. It turns for all, the wounds cut in its trunk. The soil works for all, and toward the branches a headiness of fragrant precipitation. But before reaching the shores of future orchards, grant that I deserve those on that belt of sea. Grant me my heart while awaiting the earth. Grant me on the ocean sterile, but somewhere caressed by the promise of the clue line. Grant me on this diverse ocean the obstinacy of the fierce pirogue and its marine vigor. See it advance, rising and falling on the pulverized wave. See it dance, the sacred dance before the grayness of the village. See it trumpet from a vertiginous conch. See the conch gallop up to the certainty of the morns, and see 20 times over the paddles vigorously plow the water. The pirogue rears under the attacks of the swells, deviates for an instant, tries to escape, but the paddle's rough caress turns it. Then it charges. A shudder runs along the wave's spine. The sea slobbers and rumbles. The pirogue, like a sleigh, glides onto the sand. At the end of this daybreak, my virile prayer, grant me pirogue muscles on this raging sea, and the irresistible gaiety of the conch of good tidings. Look, now I am only a man, no degradation, no spit perturbs him. Now I am only a man who accepts emptied of anger, nothing left in his heart but immense love, which burns. I accept totally without reservation. My race that no ablution of hyssop mixed with lilies could purify. My race pitted with blemishes. My race ripe grapes for drunken feet. My queen of spittle and leprosy. My queen of whips and scrofula. My queen of squamy and cloasma. Oh, those queens I once loved in the remote gardens of spring, against the illumination of all the candles of the chestnut trees. I accept. And the flogged Negro saying, "Forgive me, master," and the 29 legal blows of the whip, and the 4-foot-high cell, and the spiked carcan, and the hamstringing of my runaway audacity, and the fleur-de-lis flowing from the red iron into the fat of my shoulder, and Monsieur Vautier Maincourt's dog-house where I barked 6 poodle months, and Monsieur Braffin, and Monsieur Fournier, and Monsieur de la Mahaudière, and the yaws, the mastiff, the suicide, the promiscuity, the boudiccan, the shackles, the rack, the sippus, the head-screw. Look, am I humble enough? Have I enough calluses on my knees, muscles on my loins? Grovel in the mud. Brace yourself in the thick of the mud. Carry. Earth of mud, horizon of mud, sky of mud, dead of the mud, oh, names to thaw in the palm of a feverish breathing. Simeon Pekin, who never knew his father or mother, unheard of in any town hall, and who wandered his entire life searching for his name. Grand Vorka, of him I only know that he died, crushed one harvest evening. It was his job, apparently, to throw sand under the wheels of the running locomotive, to help it across bad spots. Michel, who used to write me signing a strange name. Unlucky Michel, address condemned district, and you, their living brothers. Exile vete congolo limke busalongo. What healer with his thick lips would suck from the depths of the gaping wound the tenacious secret of venom? What cautious sorcerer would undo from your ankles the viscous tepidity of mortal rings? Presence is, it is not on your back that I will make peace with the world. Islands, scars of the water. Islands, evidence of wounds. Islands, crumbs. Islands, unformed. Islands, cheap paper shredded upon the water. Island stumps skewered side by side on the flaming sword of the sun. Mulish reason, you will not stop me from casting on the waters at the mercy of the currents of my thirst. Your form, deformed islands. Your end, my defiance. Annulos islands, single beautiful whole. And I caress you with my oceanic hands, and I turn you around with the trade winds of my speech, and I lick you with my seaweed tongues, and I sail you unfreebootable. O death, your mushy marsh, shipwreck your hellish debris, I accept. At the end of daybreak, lost puddles, wandering scents, beached hurricanes, damasted hulls, old sores, rotted bones, vapors, shackled volcanoes, shallow-rooted dead, bitter cry, I accept. And my special geography, too, the world map made for my own use, not tinted with the arbitrary colors of scholars, but with the geometry of my spilled blood, I accept. And the determination of my biology, not a prisoner to a facial angle, to a type of hair, to a well-flattened nose, to a clearly Melaninian coloring and negritude, no longer a cephalic index or plasma or soma, but measured by the compass of suffering. And the Negro, every day more base, more cowardly, more sterile, less profound, more spilled out of himself, more separated from himself, more wily with himself, less immediate to himself. I accept it all. And far from the palatial sea that foams beneath the surreptating zizigi of blisters, miraculously lying in the despair of my arms, the body of my country, its bones shocked and in its veins, the blood hesitating like a drop of vegetal milk at the injured point of a bulb. Suddenly, now strength and life assail me like a bull, and the water of life overwhelms the papillae of the morn. Now all the veins and veinlets are bustling with new blood, and the enormous breathing lung is cyclones, and the fire hoarded in volcanoes, and the gigantic seismic pulse which now beats the measure of a living body in my firm conflagration. And we are standing now, my country and I, hair in the wind, my hand puny in its enormous fist, and now the strength is not in us, but above us, in a voice that drills the night, in the hearing like the penetrance of an apocalyptic wasp. And the voice complains that for centuries Europe has force-fed us with lies and bloated us with pestilence. For it is not true that the work of man is done, that we have no business being on earth, that we parasite the world, that it is enough for us to heal to the world, whereas the work of man is only begun, and man still must overcome all the interdictions wedged in the recesses of his fervor. And no race has a monopoly on beauty, on intelligence, on strength, and there is room for everyone at the convocation of conquest, and we now know that the sun turns around our earth, lighting the parcel designated by our will alone, and that every star falls from sky to earth at our omnipotent command. I now see the meaning of this trial by the sword. My country is the lance of night of my Bambara ancestors. It shrivels, and its point desperately retreats toward the haft when it is sprinkled with chicken blood, and it says that its nature requires the blood of man, his fat, his liver, his heart, not chicken blood. And I seek for my country not date hearts, but men's hearts, which in order to enter the silver cities through the great trapezoidal gate, beat with warrior blood, and as my eyes sweep my kilometers of paternal earth, I number its sores almost joyfully, and I pile one on top of another like rare species, and my total is ever lengthened by unexpected mentings of baseness. And there are those who will never get over not being made in the likeness of God, but of the devil. Those who believe that being a Negro is like being a second-class clerk, waiting for a better deal and upward mobility. Those who beat the drum of compromise in front of themselves. Those who live in their own oubliette. Those who say to Europe, you see, I can bow and scrape. Like you, I pay my respects. In short, I am not different from you. Pay no attention to my black skin. The sun did it. And there is the Negro pimp, the Negro Ascari, and all the zebras shaking themselves in various ways to get rid of their stripes in a dew of fresh milk. And in the midst of all that, I say, right on. My grandfather dies, I say, right on. The old negritude progressively cadavers itself. No bones about it, he was a good Negro. The whites say he was a good Negro, a really good Negro. Massa's good old darky. I say right on. He was a good Negro indeed. Poverty had wounded his chest and back, and they had stuffed into his poor brain that a fatality impossible to trap weighed on him, that he had no control over his own fate, that an evil Lord had for all eternity inscribed, thou shalt not, in his pelvic constitution, that he must be a good Negro, must sincerely believe in his worthlessness, without any perverse curiosity to check out the fatidic hieroglyphs. He was a very good Negro. And it had never occurred to him that he could hoe, burrow, cut anything else really than insipid cane. He was a very good Negro, and they threw stones at him, chunks of scrap iron, broken bottles, but neither these stones, nor this scrap iron, nor these bottles. O peaceful years of God on this terraqueous clod, and the whip argued with the bombilation of the flies over the sugary dew of our sores. I say right on, the old negritude progressively cadavers itself. The horizon breaks, recoils and expands, and through the shredding of clouds, the flashing of a sign, the slave ship cracks everywhere. Its belly convulses and resounds. The ghastly tapeworm of its cargo gnaws the fetid guts of this strange suckling out of the sea. And neither the joy of sails filled like a pocket stuffed with doubloons, nor the tricks played on the dangerous stupidity of the frigates of order prevent it from hearing the threat of its intestinal rumblings. In vain to ignore that the captain hangs the biggest loud-mouthed Negro from the main yard, or throws him into the sea, or feeds him to his mastiffs. Reeking of fried onions, the Negro scum rediscovers the bitter taste of freedom in its spilled blood, and the Negro scum is on its feet. The seated Negro scum unexpectedly standing in the hold, standing in the cabins, standing on the deck, standing in the wind, standing under the sun, standing in the blood, standing and free, standing and no longer a poor madwoman in its maritime, freedom and destitution gyrating in perfect drift, and there it is, most unexpectedly standing in the rigging, standing at the tiller, standing at the compass, standing at the map, standing under the stars, standing and free. And the illustrious ship fearlessly advances on the crumbling water, and narrowing ignominious plops are running away. By the clinking noon sea, by the burgeoning midnight sun, listen, sparrow hawk that holds the keys to the Orient. By the disarmed day, by the stony spurt of the rain, listen, dogfish that watches over the Occident. Listen, white dog of the north, black serpent of the south, that cinches the sky girdle. There still remains one sea to cross. Oh, still one sea to cross, that I may invent my lungs, that the prince may hold his tongue, that the queen may lay me, still one old man to murder, one madman to deliver, that my soul may shine, bark, 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 and the owl, my beautiful inquisitive angel, may hoot. The master of laughter, the master of ominous silence, the master of hope and despair, the master of laziness, master of the dance, it is I. And it is for this reason, Lord, the frail-necked men receive and perceive deadly triangular calm. Rally to my side, my dances, you bad Negro dances. To my side, my dances, the cark and cracker dance, the prison break dance, the it is beautiful, good, and legitimate to be a Negro dance. Rally to my side, my dances, and let the sun bounce on the racket of my hands. But no, the unequal sun is not enough for me. Coil, wind around my new growth, light on my cadenced fingers. To you I surrender my conscience and its fleshy rhythm. To you I surrender the fire in which my weakness smolders. To you I surrender the chain gang. To you the swamps. To you the non-tours of the triangular circuit. Devour wind. To you I surrender my abrupt words. Devour and encoil yourself. And self-encoiling embrace me with a more ample shudder. Embrace me unto furious us. Embrace us, but having also bitten us, to the blood of our blood bitten us. Embrace, my purity mingles only with yours. So then embrace, like a field of even phileos, at dusk our multicolored purities, and bind me without remorse, bind me with your vast arms of luminous clay. Bind my black vibration to the very navel of the world. Bind me, bitter brotherhood. Then, strangling me with your lasso of stars, rise, dove, rise, rise, rise. I follow you who are imprinted on my ancestral white cornea. Rise, sky licker, in the great black hole where a moon ago I wanted to drown, it is there I will now fish the malevolent tongue of the night in its motionless virition.